When the Krylock stormed Crython-7, the colony's defenders held the line for 6 desperate hours before their final barrier fell. Outnumbered, outgunned, and facing extinction, they broadcast a universal distress signal, standard military code, requesting immediate reinforcements from any available Allied fleet. They expected a delay, maybe a diplomatic council meeting, maybe bureaucratic silence, but what they got was 3 dark-scarred ships tearing through orbit without fanfare or flags. No insignia, no warning, just the bone-shaking thunder of drop pods slamming into Krylock territory like divine judgment. What emerged from those pods weren't polished soldiers or polished diplomats. They were human shock troopers. Combat armor blackened by flame, eyes cold, movements like predators who had done this before. The locals whispered a name they'd only heard in cautionary tales: Deathworlders. Humanity had arrived. And this was no rescue mission. This was annihilation. The cry for help Crython-7 was an agricultural moon, known for its rich soil and peaceful settlements. It was one of those planets you'd never hear about in the core systems unless you cared about grain logistics. Under the Varelian Accord, Crython enjoyed protection and nominal representation. But protection meant nothing when the Krylocks arrived. The Krylocks were engineered war beasts, originally bred for combat by a now-extinct empire. Their hive structure, biological adaptability, and overwhelming numbers made them an apex invasion force. When they struck Crython-7, they overwhelmed planetary shields in hours. Communication stations fell. Local militias were vaporized. Governor Rinvel, a mid-level Varelian administrator with no military background, did the only thing he could. He activated the failsafe beacon, a coded cry for help sent through FTL pulses to all known Allied systems. Then, he waited. Galactic Council debate in the capital of the Varelian Accord, on the orbital station of Hele Prime. The beacon was received within minutes, but political inertia slowed the response. Representatives from over 40 species reviewed the message. Crython-7 is agricultural, said one Ashari diplomat. Strategically unimportant. The Krylocks haven't attacked Varelian territory in decades, said another. This may be a probing action, not a full invasion. A lone ambassador, Admiral Rayan from the Andari Republic, leaned forward and asked the question everyone avoided. Have we asked the humans yet? Silence. Humanity's membership in the Accord was conditional, even tentative. The species was respected, feared even, but never fully trusted. Their military, their adaptability, and most of all, their history of unrelenting aggression on their own death world made others uncomfortable. But Crython-7 needed help, and the humans answered first. The arrival 3 human ships arrived in Crythonian orbit 27 hours after the distress call. Not sleek cruisers or drone carriers. They were assault carriers, functional, armored, blackened from previous campaigns. Their commander didn't call for parley. There were no opening transmissions, just a simple coded message beamed to the remaining Crython defense stations. Reinforcements received. Begin evacuation of non-combatants. Engage enemy in 43 minutes. Crython's few remaining soldiers watched, in awe as the sky cracked open and drop pods screamed downward like falling meteors. The Krylocks, unaware of the reinforcements, continued their advance. Then the first pod hit. What is a Deathworlder? To understand what followed, you have to understand Earth. A Deathworld is defined by the Galactic Council as a planet whose environment is so hostile that most sapient species would perish within days. Earth has all of it: violent weather, active tectonics, microbial plagues, carnivorous megafauna, unpredictable climate patterns, and a long history of natural disasters. But humans didn't just survive Earth, they thrived. War, famine, and plague shaped them. Every generation tougher, smarter, and more relentless. Their bodies, while not the strongest, were adaptable. Their minds, dangerously creative. Their capacity for violence, honed by millennia of internal conflict. The term Deathworlder wasn't an insult. It was a warning. Shock and awe. The first wave of human marines emerged from the drop pods clad in modular combat suits, powered by exoskeletal enhancements and embedded with adaptive AI. Their weapons weren't exotic, they were kinetic. Bullets, explosives, blades. Simple tools perfected through centuries of use. Krylocks charged the first squad. The humans didn't retreat, they advanced. 2 squads flanked the main force, laying down suppressive fire and lobbing microcluster grenades. The Krylocks adapted quickly, mutating armor like scales. But the humans adapted faster, switching to thermobaric charges and magnesium rounds. One Marine reportedly used a mining laser to cut through a Krylock warbeast's spine. Within 90 minutes, the tide of battle shifted. Entire Krylock nests were obliterated by precise high-impact strikes. Drones tracked troop movements. Snipers picked off commanders. Infantry fought in perfect sync, with no wasted motion. Crython's defenders watched with awe. These weren't just soldiers. They were predators. Efficient. Unrelenting. The turning point. The Krylocks attempted a counter-assault on the human forward base established near Crython's hydroelectric dam. At night, under cover of a toxic storm. It was a mistake. Humans had thermal vision, redundant oxygen systems, and environmental seals. The storm that blinded Krylock eyes only enhanced human concealment. In one night, they eliminated an entire brood of $600. A captured transmission from Krylock comms was later translated. Target species lacks fear, exhibits irrational aggression, recommend full retreat. But Krylocks don't retreat. Humanity's philosophy of war. Human warfare isn't about balance. It isn't about deterrence. It's about decisiveness. When humanity commits to war, they commit fully. Not to match the enemy, but to overwhelm them. Psychologically, materially, tactically. They don't fight fair, they fight smart. If Krylocks used tunnels, humans flooded them. If Krylocks used pheromone trails, humans mimicked and corrupted them with false leads. One squad reportedly strapped explosives to Krylock corpses to bait search parties. To humans, war is a puzzle, and they solve it like a game. With brutal creativity. Aftermath. Within 11 days of human arrival, Crython-7 was secure. Not just held, cleansed. Krylock spores were eradicated, nests incinerated, survivors captured for study. One Marine commander's only statement: "You don't leave a threat half dead." Varelian relief forces arrived 48 hours later. Too late to matter. Governor Rinvel met the human commander, a woman named Captain Reyes. She wore a simple uniform. No medals, no smile. "Thank you," he said. She looked past him at the burning horizon. "Just doing our job." What they got were Deathworlders. The official report from the Varelian Accord categorized the human action as a Class Red interventional response. Unofficially, the term spread through. They weren't called again. Not unless it was truly the end, because when you ask humanity for help, you're not calling for assistance. You're calling for the storm. For the species that built cities in lightning zones, sailed oceans without knowing where they led, and split the atom not for peace, but because they could. So yes, Crython-7 asked for reinforcements. What they got were Deathworlders. Echoes. In the stars months after the battle, Krylock incursions decreased across multiple sectors. Intercepted hive transmissions revealed a new genetic behavior. Instinctive avoidance of human signals. Deathworlder DNA and combat recordings were integrated into xenological threat matrices across dozens of civilizations. The Galactic Council reluctantly passed a motion. Emergency Directive 117, Human Deployment Priority. Translated, it meant, when things fall apart, call the humans. Crython-7 was rebuilt faster than anyone expected. Human engineers remained behind, not to govern, not to colonize, but to prepare. Underground bunkers, defense satellites, encrypted early warning beacons, and yet even amidst gratitude the locals whispered, "They saved us, but gods help the next world that crosses them." Beyond the battlefield back on Earth, the war wasn't even newsworthy. Just a footnote in military logs. Humanity had fought dozens of such skirmishes in the past century. Captain Reyes was reassigned, her unit rotated to another front. The ships returned to Sol space for refit. No parades, no medals, just maintenance and silence. But among the galactic, Races, stories spread like wildfire. Children played as Deathworlders in back-alley games. Warlords reconsidered expansionist plans. Trade partners sent double the tribute during negotiations. A single species had redrawn the strategic landscape not through diplomacy, but through demonstration. A different kind of hope. Not all feared the humans. Some admired them. A few even sought alliances. Because beneath the violence there was a strange truth. Humanity only fought when asked. They never imposed. They never demanded. Their help came with no price, except the knowledge that if you saw their drop pods fall, someone had crossed a line. In time, other species began studying Earth, its history, its cultures, its contradictions. For in the madness of a death world, there lay lessons not just in warfare, but in resilience, creativity, unyielding hope. Crython-7 became a symbol, not of destruction, but of survival. The Krylock Requiem. Despite the defeat on Crython-7, Krylock hives across the sector began mutating at an accelerated rate, attempting to evolve resistances to human weapons. Deep genetic changes emerged, reinforced neural shielding, thermal camouflage, even attempts at basic stealth. But it wasn't enough. Humanity didn't rest. Deathworlders had something Krylocks could never match: foresight. New weapons were field-tested on captured samples. Behavioral mimicry labs ran simulations of future swarms. And by the time the Krylocks launched their next raid, it was no longer a battle. It was an extermination. Captain Reyes's new mission captain, Reyes, back from Crython-7, was reassigned to a covert project codenamed Iron Howl. It wasn't about territory, it was about deterrence. She led teams to silently map potential invasion vectors across the Accord's outer edges. They left behind beacons, traps, and sometimes entire AI-operated garrisons hidden beneath the soil. Wherever danger might sprout again, humans would be 2 steps ahead. A Deathworlder's creed. Across human colonies, military academies saw a spike in applicants. The events on Crython-7 had awakened something ancient, a sense of purpose, not conquest, not power, but protection through strength. Cadets recited an adapted mantra. We are the storm for those in need. We are Deathworlders. We endure so others don't have to. Galactic diplomacy. Shifts. In the wake of Crython, species that once viewed Earth with suspicion now approached with curiosity. The Andari Republic sent scientists to Earth to study resilience theory. The Vornak offered shared command programs. Even the reluctant Ashari proposed a cultural exchange. What surprised everyone wasn't the humans' military prowess. It was their openness, their capacity to laugh, create, and share despite everything. The death world hadn't made them monsters, it had made them balanced, fierce, but deeply empathetic. Children of the black soil Crython-7's youth began studying human martial history, not glorifying war, but understanding strategy, logistics, unity. Local teachers incorporated Earth ethics into education, courage in chaos, loyalty under stress, and the willingness to stand firm. As crops regrew and cities stood tall again, a generation raised under shadow now looked toward the stars with hope. An unexpected alliance, in a surprising twist. A rogue Krylock queen defected. She communicated through pheromone-interpreting synths, seeking asylum. Her hive mind fragment had watched the Crython massacre and chosen survival through diplomacy. Humans were cautious, but intrigued. A small lab was set up in orbit to study her behavioral divergence. It became a symbol that even engineered monsters could evolve, adapt, choose something different. The Council's reckoning. The Galactic Council, shaken by Earth's display, commissioned a full audit of all member defense protocols. What they found was unsettling. Species had grown complacent, relying on automated defenses and soft diplomacy. A new resolution passed. Every member species would maintain a trained rapid response team, mentored by humans. Some protested. Most obeyed. Earth, as usual, didn't demand this, but everyone knew it was best to follow the example that worked. Deathworlder Doctrine. The first interspecies combat manual was published jointly by Earth and the Andari. dubbed the Deathworlder. Doctrine: it emphasized unpredictability, empathy in chaos, and survivability in non-ideal conditions. The book was banned in some empires, and pirated immediately. Ghost units: humanity began deploying covert ghost units, non-lethal operatives tasked with preventing war before it started. They disrupted black markets, sabotaged warmongers' weapons, and rescued key political targets across the galaxy. These units became legends, silent protectors, the shadows cast by a brighter flame. Rebuilding the flame, Crython-7's capital, once ash and ruin, now bore a new name: New Reyes. The first Interspecies Defense Academy opened its gates there, combining Varelian tech, human grit, and Krylock biological learning algorithms. It wasn't just a monument, it was a promise. The Krylock Endgame, a final, massive Krylock swarm gathered on the edge of known space, billions strong, desperate. But the galaxy was ready, coordinated, fleets, human-led fire teams, Deathworlder veterans at every front. The battle lasted 3 days, not because the galaxy was weak, but because it fought together. When the dust settled, the swarm was gone. And for the first time in 1,000 cycles, peace held. The price of peace victory didn't come without cost. Thousands lost, cities scarred, sleepless nights for those who led, but the galaxy remembered. Not just the fear, but the unity, the resilience. The lesson that sometimes you need warriors not to conquer, but to end the fight so peace can begin. What they got was hope. Crython-7 had asked for reinforcements. They expected bureaucracy, delay, maybe extinction. What they got were Deathworlders, but beyond the armor, beyond the tactics and fury, they got humanity. The stubborn, unyielding, compassionate will to never let another world fall like theirs almost did. And in that, they didn't just get reinforcements, they got a future. The Treaty of Crython. In a landmark gathering on Crython-7, representatives from over 40 species signed a new mutual defense treaty. The location was symbolic, a place once lost and saved. The treaty outlined protocols for early response teams, data sharing, and rapid mobilization units modeled after human tactics. While not every species was thrilled about adapting Deathworlder methods, none could deny their effectiveness. The Krylock War had shown that peace required preparation, and that humanity's brutal upbringing on Earth had value in a galaxy unprepared for true violence. From Deathworld, Life Earth itself became a training ground for elite interspecies squads. Harsh climates, unpredictable predators, and dense urban simulations allowed recruits to harden under conditions no simulation could match. Recruits from the gentle oceans of Andari, the methane swamps of Threecor, and even Krylock defectors now trained side by side. Here, under Earth's crimson sunsets and roaring skies, future heroes were born, not to conquer, but to preserve. The Shadow Protocol humanity had learned that war wasn't just about strength, it was about information. The Shadow Protocol launched a new branch of interstellar intelligence, with human tacticians mentoring information officers from allied worlds. Covert operations prevented 3 would-be invasions and quietly dismantled 2 rogue empires plotting war. Diplomacy, backed by Deathworlder resolve, kept the galaxy in check. The children of war and peace, 10 years after the fall of the last Krylock swarm, a new generation was born, one that didn't remember the war, but lived its legacy. Statues of Reyes, of Rinvel, of the nameless soldiers lost in orbit, were erected in every capital. These children grew up learning about Crython-7 not just as history, but as proof that even a fractured galaxy could unite when pushed far enough. Beyond, the stars with peace established, humanity turned its gaze farther. Expeditions to unknown systems began, not as conquerors, but as allies and explorers. The phrase Deathworlders, once spoken in fear, now evoked trust and strength. Crython-7 had asked for reinforcements. What it got was a legacy, a spark, that ignited unity. And the Deathworlders? They'd given the galaxy something far rarer than victory. They gave it a second chance.